Dong, 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 dong. And spill your guts. Everybody's favorite. Hello.
Did you ever see, I don't, maybe they still do them, like air band competitions,
God.
like air guitar competitions. Have you seen those?
I have not, but I feel like I'd freaking kill it.
I would every time, because you guys can't see Mandi, but I can. There's also like movement happening. She's not just singing, she's putting on a whole performance.
It's my signature move. I can't help it. I love our little beat. Hello?
Whoa. Jesus?
Is that you?
Pause.
No, keep that.
I could go back to that, but
Hello, God. It's me,
the
Margaret.
sound effects are going nuts over here.
It's like a robot burst.
So we'll talk about
Hello,
it.
Jesus. Welcome back. You're here at Spill Your Guts podcast with Rachel, Mandi, Jesse, and Jesus. Glad to have you back. Glad to have you back. Oh my God, I love everything. You guys, hi. How's it going? I wanted to check in with you because last week I bullied you guys into letting me pull a card for you in front of all of our listeners, and I needed to check back in. I needed to follow up and see how your week was, if you thought about it at all, if it gave you anything to think about, how your week's been. This is kind of like now that we're officially in April. I know it's going to be a couple weeks before everybody listens, but we're officially in April, which means quarter one of 2023 has wrapped up. So we're going to do a little review and a little, we're going to make some statements about quarter two. That's where my head's at. Are you guys cool with that?
Sure.
All right. How about you first, Jesse?
Yeah, let's get this out of the way since I'm the person without my name on the cover.
You don't like being exposed.
I really don't. That's why I sit behind the mic. But I will say, like, I was seeing the bluebirds before, but now this week I definitely did see them. And it made me excited and made me anticipate that all my work is translating to something bigger. Okay. It didn't happen.
Okay.
But yeah, it's making me think about it a lot more.
Okay, maybe like just more awareness.
Definitely more awareness.
Okay, I take that.
So we were talking about being triggered off air. I was definitely getting triggered by bluebirds.
Okay. I'm sorry.
I just hear Jesse like waving his fist at the bluebirds.
He's like
pounding on the window.
Not again, you vermin. It's like the bird of the state of Nevada.
It did make me think of Bird Hub. Is that what we came up with last week?
Rachel's making money over there. Well, start an OnlyFans for the birds. I bet you'd make a little bit of money. I mean, enough to buy a coffee. I'd fucking send you $5.
You know what I learned about Utah? Do you know what the Utah state bird is?
Oh my gosh, please let it be something awesome. Please.
It's
commercial break.
No, I love this. They can hear our wheezing.
It's a seagull.
Dude, what?
We are not ocean bound.
Yeah, that's wild. Wait, what?
But supposedly, when the Mormon settlers came to town and colonized the entire area,
we're going to have a great episode today.
There was some kind of, what was that thing in the Bible where all the locusts came through?
A plague.
So all these grasshoppers came through and like decimated everything.
Okay.
But the seagull population was following it, and they came in and they ate up all the bugs and they saved the pioneers.
That needs some crickets.
The more you know. The more you know. You know what? I appreciate you. You know the randomest shit.
I know.
And you know what? I feel like there's probably another message in there somehow for us, but we'll have to save it for another
I
day.
think so.
Bird Hub, home of the seagull. Saving pioneers daily. Rachie, how about you? Thank you for sharing, Jesse.
You're welcome.
I was trying, you know what the image stuck in my head from my card was like the being in the back, like holding the little alien body.
Right.
And you know what this, oh my God. Oh, whoa. I'm about to connect some dots here.
Real time download, guys. Everybody buckle the F up.
So last point retreat up north, our next one is coming up in a few weeks.
Hide your kids, hide your wives.
The beautiful woman who did the cacao ceremony, and I cannot remember her name.
Rhiannon.
Rihanna.
Yeah.
Rihanna.
Who just dropped an album on Spotify and iTunes. P.S. Little like makeshift shout out right there. Beautiful, like earth energy music. So definitely check that out.
She partnered with the cacao that I love, that I've shared on our page before. Mm-hmm. And they did like a collab, and I was like, just like so excited that she was on there. But I think it was during the cacao ceremony, because we all kind of went around and, had brief meltdowns, as you do at retreats.
It's great times.
And I was talking about, feeling like such an alien. And she really challenged me to like stop that and be grounded and here and present and human. And since then, I will because I think sometimes I worry that I use this kind of alien story to disassociate, and try to make sense, which probably isn't healthy. So I have caught myself when I think of I'm not from here, or so this isn't my problem, or I'm not even with these people. Yeah. So I don't, you know what I mean? I catch myself being nope, you're human and you're on the planet. So
gotta stay.
You are. And so I started thinking about that image that popped up where I had kind of shed this alien identity and was working on being more human. And I think the other theme was a new beginnings. Mm-hmm. And the more present and in my body and grounded that I get on planet Earth, the more wild things keep coming my way in a good way.
Yeah.
So I was just thinking about that this week. The more I go all in on being human, the more I'm getting back. No surprise. We know how that works.
Ooh, so you know what I just realized as you were talking just now? Sorry, now I'm interrupting you. Real time downloads, real time Mandi interruptions. You guys are just, we're hot. The line is hot. Is that a industry term?
Okay.
Okay.
We'll roll with it.
When you were talking just now, I was thinking of how your word for 2023 is magnet. Right? Mm-hmm. And how you are, the intention of that was to be so aware, because energy is a boomerang. So whatever you throw out is going to come back. So if you are the magnet, you want to be mindful of bringing only those things that are aligned with you and feel right and good and powerful and, all the things. Mm-hmm. And as you were talking about the more human I am, the more grounded, the more on earth, the more is coming my way. That's magnetism, right? The magnetic pull of gravity of earth. Mm-hmm. The more you surrender to it and allow, the more the magnetizing energy of the earth is happening for you. How cool is that?
It's pretty amazing. Now that I'm, of course, comes another layer. I was in outside of San Antonio this week for the Until Death rep party for our fundraiser. Went really well, met a ton of people, and I had lots of opportunity to it was like non-stop social time, like which I'm not used to anymore.
Right.
My little room with my birds. And so I found myself kind of like leaning back on my tools to stay grounded. I got up early and went for a swim, which was more like a cold ice experience, which was great. I did some breath work. I did some Reiki, but had some really amazing, what is it about like a bonfire that just, what is it about a bonfire where people gather around and like have such intense conversation every time?
I feel like there has to be some like very like deep anthropology type answer that goes with this, that like literally there's an exact like answer to that question. But I would, based on a little teeny bit of what I know, that I can assume is like, is there anything more like central to the human experience of community than a bonfire? Like across cultures, across class, like people gather, like a meal. Like no matter how meager, right, or grand, like people break bread together and people always gather around a fire. That's very, very true. I totally agree with you.
It's so good. It reminds me of what is it, candling, that meditation where you like stare at a flame, like a candle flame, like stuff. Like there was just kind of some things, but I had a couple conversations because there's a situation where some people were getting like upset over something that happened. And I could tell that it was like trickling, like going throughout the group. Like people weren't upset and now suddenly they were. And I don't know why. I just felt like because it was the type of community where I could get a little woo-woo and I'm a leader within that group. So I feel like I have permission to just kind of like, preach a little bit.
Yes. You've earned the right. You've earned the right. Yeah, absolutely.
But I stopped and I was like, hey, like, I don't know if you've thought about your energy, but really like what you want to expend, right? So like if you're feeling upset and angry, that is what you're going to see that's your experience. That's what you're going to see. Everything is going to be angry. Everything is going to have friction. Like that's the same thing with social media, right? Like when I was in my anger period, my social was all also angry.
Yes.
And my friends were all pissed. So it was just like this nice conversation where I felt like I was able to kind of like de-escalate the situation and have people become a little more grounded in their body when all I wanted to do was like, beam me up.
You're like, let me out of here. Oh my gosh. I'm so proud of you. It's really hard, I think, to like when you're a leader anyway, like leadership is its own thing that I get passionate about, but like leading in the spiritual space is even more layered, right? Because it's easy to sort of take advantage, I think, without meaning to, because it's such a vulnerable space. And I feel like everybody like it's like sort of new to everyone.
Yeah.
Like even people who have been in faith for like a long time, because like I know people who are still like very like still committed to like, church culture and stuff, who I've stayed friends with, and even there, even in that space, I feel like people are experiencing like a new world.
Yes.
Because we're living in just a new world, regardless of like where you're at in it. And we're all sort of like trying to acclimate, trying to get our sea legs. And it's really interesting. So I'm proud of you for showing up and kind of putting yourself out there. Cause I think in like with everything going on in the world, it's easy to just kind of like step back and avoid, you know?
Well, and I just appreciate it overall. I mean, I met so many people and like, and maybe it's because I'm putting it out too, but a lot of conversation with men in particular about woo-woo. Like about them like really digging in. I met this one guy who, and a lot of they're veterans too. But when he got out, he was like really struggling. Did an ayahuasca trip and came back, but then also like decided to just completely go off the grid for like a year. No, like he had a phone for emergencies, but literally just like camped and fished and hung out and like and found himself. Like,
yeah.
I was like, damn, like one from a man who's experienced potentially a lot of trauma to go isolate and find peace. Like, I don't know. I was just really impressed that it seemed like woo-woo was like a almost a normalized conversation.
Yes, dude. I feel that's what I'm saying. I feel like something's happening. Like,
yeah.
You know, like we've been talking about it since we started this last summer. Like we're seeing it happening. We're seeing the momentum, right? Men, especially, Jesse, you can attest. You are a token woke man over there.
I'm a man, yeah.
But I hate using that term woke because it's been hijacked and like it doesn't mean what when we hear it in the media. That's not what it means. But like to be awakened is to be aware. Simply, that's it. It's to just begin to be aware of just your own human experience. The way that our past has affected us, the way it's affecting our future. It's awareness of all of that, trying to make sense of it, heal it, to make the most of like the rest of our days, right? And like the most simplest, like across all the things, right? That's basically what it is. And so it's interesting because like we talked about TikTok a couple weeks ago and how like that has brought people together as humans, right? To discuss things that were like so taboo to talk about in culture, right? Like psychology and healing and trauma and all the woo-woo things and all the, all the things you're not supposed to talk about. Sex, drugs, rock and roll, right? Like politics, religion, all the things. But then we find out we have more in common than not. Right. And I think women, we are allowed to find community wherever we go. Right. That's like almost expected that women just like will find and build community with each other. But I don't believe that's always been the case for men. And I think what's happening now is that men are finding that they acknowledging an awareness of feelings and being able to talk about them in like where maybe generations before us weren't. Would you agree with that, Jesse? I don't want to try to speak for mankind. At least today.
Well, just to give the audience a little bit of background, all my clients in this are in this realm, but they're female. They're females dealing with alternative ways for mental health, they're in shamanism, somatic breathwork, all this stuff. But there have been a couple men that are really trying to embrace that within this industry. And what I've learned through just recordings with them, talking to them, masculine energy has a lot to do with this and breaking down masculine energy versus feminine energy.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so hard maybe to get to the masculine side in this avenue.
Yeah, because I thank you, because you're 100% right. And I think that what's happening is that true masculinity, like what the buzzword in this realm is called divine masculinity, but that true masculinity is so intimidating because it requires softness. It requires gentleness, which only comes with healing, facing demons, the strength of vulnerability, all those things. And it's all the things that men have been told. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, right?
You keep going. You're good so far.
To you that you can't be those things and be a strong man. Like you have to be like an alpha with like a big
For sure. Like in traditional guys were raised that way.
Yeah,
and it's through generations of teachings.
Yep. Conquer, hustle.
Yeah.
The grind doesn't stop.
Right. And that touches the religious world as well.
I 100% agree.
So that has to change. change as well. So it's a very dynamic subject.
That's what I'm saying. And if you look across, and not just with like men who would be comfortable saying they're woo woo, right, or like have faith or whatever, but it's like even if you look at just like the average dude, like who's middle aged, maybe has a young family, maybe doesn't, like their roles within their relationship, within their marriages, within their households, like it's all being like sort of put all out on the table, and everybody's looking at it, everybody's talking about it. And I think for the first time, men are really empowered to be like, hey, actually, I have something to say about this. Or actually, I don't want to be like this. I want to learn how to change. I want to heal. Like, it's really exciting to see that that's happening. And I think that when men can step into their strength, then women can like lay down theirs. That false strength that like we've all had to like kind of figure out how to have, It's a very interesting, and if you think about it in like, like physiologically, hey. Like and this has nothing to do with people's gender. Okay. I'm just talking about the energy. That's it. Everybody has masculine energy and feminine energy, and we are meant to be a balance, like a yin and a yang, an infinity symbol. Like, it's supposed to be a give and a take, a push and a pull, just like how when men and women are together. Right? There is a giving and a receiving and a dance, not to sound corny, but that's true. And so when men are free to soften into the divine feminine energy that they deserve, to be seen, felt, heard with their feelings, emotions, their connection to spirit, and have it not looked at as weak or lame. Do you know what I mean? Like when they are allowed to soften into that, we are allowed to strengthen in a different way. Right. But right now we've all been playing these backwards roles. And I feel like you see it showing up in all kinds of different ways on the world stage, right? Like we see it in all the things we talk about, the politics, the struggle, all the things on social that make us worried and scared and fearful. Right. But like these little intimate moments, these freaking bonfire moments are happening more than the scary stuff, I think. And it's where we choose to focus. It's where we choose to, I'm going to do this to my own damn self right now, but it's where we choose to put our faith. Do I have faith in bonfire moments happening with real human beings? More than I have in the structures that are supposed to be held in place to save us? Yeah. You guys know the answer to that. It's cool. It's cool to be a part of, but it's also, and here I go. You guys want me to go on my friggin' tangent. I get worried sometimes because like, with freedom comes the opportunity for all things to like kind of become their own thing. Right. And so I think that when I shared about like my faith journey on our podcast, but when I left church culture, I was so bummed out by what I was experiencing and the truths that I was seeing within that culture that were like a direct violation to everything that like I thought it was about. Right. So it caused me to like kind of swing my pendulum way to the other side. And I got, I went from being super like conservative church culture, like Mandi, to this way over here. We're going to, I'm going to learn all this other woo woo stuff, and I want nothing to do with that. Right. And as I have, been over here in this world for a little while, my pendulum swing starting to kind of, yin and yang, give and flow. I'm coming back into a little bit more balance, and I'm seeing that even way over here on this side of things, the potential for it to be misconstrued and not be what it's supposed to be about is happening on this side too, in this space. And I've been actually kind of fucking angry about it. To be honest with you, I feel like a little bit pissed because it's like, oh, we're all selling snake oil over here on this side too. Do you know what I mean?
That you and I had that dilemma for a while on like, can we continue retreats?
Yeah.
Because the thought of monetizing someone's spiritual journey, it still makes me uncomfortable.
Right.
And we talk a lot about accessibility too, like everyone has a right to experience and have this journey. And it's so wild to me. That's why we talk about like, it's dangerous to be on an extreme side.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that you have to be in the middle and be neutral, but that's where I've talked about this before. Like, I like to hover and kind of circle around because it gives me room to go up and down this scale.
Yes. But that's how it should be.
Stuck.
That is how it should be. You right now in your own body with that little alien being that lives in there, in that meat vessel, right? You alone are your own guru. There's no one else coming to save you or me, right? Like, I'm my own. There's no guru. There's nothing to sell. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, and I think that is there value, like immeasurable value in what these things that people have learned, gifts that people have, right? I want to share with you guys an experience I had this last week with somebody actually really super gifted that I spent some time with and got some incredible knowledge from. But when we have giftings, when we have passion, when we have talents in a thing, when we're like, I'm certified in Reiki. I'm technically a Reiki master. Those hours of study, the hours to get certified, there is value there. I'm not saying that people's time, talent, and energy is not of value, and people should absolutely, like, if you are giving of your time, it is your job. Like, you should absolutely be charging money, and you have to. But there is a difference between that. Oh, I'm scared to say it. Spill your guts, though. Okay, bitch. Come on. It's like using the spiritual realm to create a new way to participate in capitalism.
Yes.
And we're dressing it up as spiritual shit.
Yes.
Which then sucks. Because first off, as somebody who used to be in the fitness industry and as a coach, like as somebody who I consider myself to be a leader wherever I go, it's important to have integrity and to, like, for me to show up real, even though sometimes showing up real is not best for me. It doesn't make me look great all the time because you have to be honest sometimes, and it doesn't always put us in the best light. But I have found that never fails me, even when it seems like it's going to. When I have truly fucked up and I've had to just own it. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Loud and wrong
all day. But I feel like in order to create a successful business in this system we live in, you have to put all your best feet forward. You have to really create value, right? You have to. And from my experience with people with their fitness journey, they know when you mean it or not. People are not dumb. They know when you're real and when they're being sold something, right? And so my concern as somebody in this spiritual space, who in my own weird way I'm a leader in, is like, okay, if we don't have checks, balances, accountability, and whatnot, then we're all just running wild with all of this information kind of irresponsibly. Like, we can't just be going over and cracking open people's trauma if we are not either being guided or influenced, counseled by people who have, degree, like clinical people who know what they're doing with people's trauma. Like, I have an issue with that. You know what I mean? Like, I believe in the power of holding space, and I know that there are incredible leaders who can do that. I myself think that I am somebody who can hold space for somebody in a hard time. But am I responsible to unleash someone's trauma and not know how to, like, provide them the support they need going forward after that? That gets weird, and it gets muddled in the spiritual space. And that's something we don't want to talk about, right?
Yeah.
Because that's low vibrational. And I'm like, have you met me?
The trauma-informed weightlifting group talks a lot about that. Their kind of slogan is do less harm or do no harm and then do good. So essentially, like, making sure that you're leaving people exactly as they are and then improving on it. And I think a lot of times when we go through these like spiritual practices, sometimes leaders think they have to like bring people to their darkest depths.
Yes. This is what I was just going to say.
And then they leave them there.
Well, and I'm going to just say it. All right. I don't know why I'm fucking pussyfooting around because it's not like Janet Jackson's listening, right? But it's like because then people, because they're trying to build something, be someone and build something, right? Which by itself is valiant, right? It's worthy, especially if the intentions are to be of service and to help, which I believe, I choose to believe that most people who are doing this, that is their intention, right? So that's what I'm going to choose. But what happens is if like unchecked, right, and you're just like living in that space, then without even realizing, you start to sort of like take ownership of someone else's healing. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then in order to have like, really good referrals or like reviews, it becomes about like you and you having some kind of power or you creating some kind of thing that only you can get at your thing. And then I take issue with that because then it's like you have people who, like myself, who maybe don't have a couple $100 extra a month to go get a session over here or there, or, go take an extensive breath work class somewhere, or even like come to a retreat like the ones we go to. And then they feel like, well, I can't heal. I can't do this stuff because I can't afford XYZ. I can't participate because, well, I have kids, dude. I can't, fly across the country for 5 days. And I'd love to do this stuff you're doing. My heart is like yearning for it, but I just can't. And it's like, oh. And then it's like we get excited about these things we get to do, but then it's like realizing that there's people who don't maybe have the opportunity to do stuff that they feel like they're missing out or they're not worthy of healing or something because they can't participate in these things. And that's bullshit. That's wrong. And furthermore, and this is kind of going into, I had kind of some downloads I wanted to share. This is my Q1 2023, my Q1 review. I had a little bit of a revelation last week, you guys. So the archetype, Rachel, I know you and I can like relate like as an empath, right? That's kind of like the gateway drug into the spiritual world is recognizing that you are an empath and that there are narcissists, and the empaths, right, sort of attract the narcissist as like an archetype as adult human behavior is concerned, right? And there's lots of talk about this all over the place about empaths and narcissists, and an empath. And again, this is just me paraphrasing, so I don't know the official definition of the word, but an empath, as I understand it, is somebody who is very sensitive, very intuitive, is very empathic, obviously, to other people's emotions, moods, vibes, really good at reading a room, and really, really sensitive, sort of like wants to give everybody the benefit of the doubt, wants to be a helper, wants to be blah, 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 etc. And then there's the narcissist, which most people know that's like somebody who's not any of those things and has a very bottom line that is self-indulgent. Again, my paraphrasing. However, when you kind of dig deeper into that, you realize that the empath archetype is codependence. It's its own toxicity. It's its own people-pleasing like thing, right? And then when you dig into, a little deeper into the narcissist, you realize that is its own thing, right? And we're all sort of playing out all these different roles everywhere, right? So the realization that I had last week was that in order to participate in like an empath narcissist story, like if I identify as an empath, then automatically, because of duality, polarity that exists on earth. That's why we're here, right? Light, dark, love, fear, good, evil, right? If I identify as an empath, that automatically creates a narcissist for me. If I identify as a victim, there has to be a villain. If I identify as, the empath, the martyr, there has to be someone affirming that all the time, coming at me with that energy that I need to make it true for me that I'm an empath. So, I know.
Okay, wait. This is actually blowing my mind because I'm just thinking about I don't know if I talk about, I was married for 16 years.
Yeah. I don't know if you've ever shared that on the podcast, but I know that. Yeah.
I didn't really know I was an empath until Mandi came into my life and was like, hey, has anyone ever told you you're an empath? And I was like, what?
Sorry.
After my marriage, my ex was actually diagnosed with narcissism and a bunch of other things. And I had never heard the word codependent either until I got into therapy.
Right.
Post-marriage. And the majority of my time spent in therapy was just dissecting, not even our relationship, but understanding the empath and the narcissist connection.
Right.
Like the magnetism.
Yes.
And as you were saying that, I was just thinking about the relationship that I'm in now. I identify as a strong woman and I attracted a strong man. Like a literally.
Oh, poopsie, shout out.
Poopsie.
Yes.
Who also, plot twist, turned out to, be an empath, even though he would never admit it.
Well, I say recovering empath, right? Because I no longer look. When I first heard that, like I said, it's the gateway drug, right? It's what really set me up to investigate, because it wasn't intimidating to me. Because remember, I had a spiritual, collapse. So anything that sounded kind of spiritual was a no for me. So approaching what I was dealing with a couple years ago, when all this started sort of gaining momentum for me, it felt safe to pursue and investigate more psychological stuff. I want to be mindful and healthy, and I want to have healthy emotions, and so the empath-narcissist thing felt safe for me to investigate. And then the more and more I went down that road, of course, the more and more I learned about it kind of opens up this whole other conversation, right? But in the woo-woo sense, right? If we really truly believe, you've said a couple things today already, about the whole thing about magnetizing and calling in, and we've talked about manifestation, and you talked about how on your socials, right? When you're angry, when you're upset, when you're furious, that's all that seems to pop up for you, right? And we know that specifically on TikTok, there is the specific algorithm. Whatever you interact with, it shows up. So don't interact with anything you don't want to see, right? Unless you're like Rachel and you want to raw dog the thing and not have any control over it at all.
And that's part of what was that Netflix special that really freaked my shit out, that talked about how Instagram and Facebook and they had,
the social dilemma or whatever it was.
Yes, and they had the two humans behind the curtain,
yes.
Oh my god! After that, I was
I know, but if you think about it, in a really simple sense, that's what, if we believe in the law of attraction, that's what it is. It's the algorithm. What we give our attention to is what shows up, in our physical experience, right? So it doesn't surprise me, right, now that you have been healing and you are, operating as this different version of yourself than when I suggested that you might be an empath.
I literally had never heard that in my life before you brought it up.
But I also feel in hindsight, I'm talking to a completely different person now. And you are to me too. We have just evolved several hundred times, right, since then. But of course, I don't feel like that archetype fits you anymore. I would say recovering empath, right? Mm-hmm. And if that's true, then that means narcissists can recover too, because there's no labels. The only labels are the ones we impose, because I am that I am. The only thing that creates things like jealousy, envy, lack, resentment is separation. That's it. There is no jealousy of anybody else or resentment, or like, I'm afraid I'm not going to get that, like that lack feeling. Like, when's it my turn? Like, the only way you can feel that is if you're in separation. If you really come back into your Kanye brain, like I have to, and you like realize like, okay, if I am source, God, right, in all these cells and molecules having this experience as Mandi, and I believe that you are too, and so is Jesse, and all these houseplants and all the trees, then there's nothing. I'm not separate. Everything belongs to us. Everything's already ours. Nothing's wrong. Everything's fine. And that is the practice. Mm-hmm. So going back to my revelation, I was like realizing like you cannot have an empath. You cannot be an empath without attracting the narcissist. So what we identify as is huge, because if I'm identifying, right, as someone who is like righteous in my anger, right, about greed, and people in positions of leadership who are taking advantage of that and taking advantage of people for their greed with force. And I've been so upset about this. Like, anybody who's like friends with me in real life knows I've been like having a hard time. But I realized like, oh my gosh, I cannot combat the thing that is unjust with guilt, with greed and force. And I realized like, for me, it's not the greed of money or status, right? It's the greed of my fucking ego of wanting to be right? Mm-hmm. Which, if left unchecked, then we're no different than anything else, which is why in the spiritual community, you know, if we're talking about these like real things and like trying to lead the way of people to like show up as their most genuine, authentic selves and leading the way of the healing journey, then that's really it. As a leader in the spiritual community, I'm literally closing my eyes because I don't know who I'm talking to, but I'm talking to you out there. If you consider yourself a leader in the spiritual space, the only work to do is within. It's inward and then onward. And then people will follow you if you are authentically doing that work. Because they will smell your bullshit if you're not. That's it. That's the truth. There's nothing to sell. Now, yes, there are experiences to create. There are things that we can all teach each other and learn. And there should be a value exchange for those things. Mm-hmm. But like, if you at any point think that you are responsible for someone else's healing or breakthrough, you're wrong. You are loud and wrong. That's it. And this is why I don't get invited to things no more. Anyway, thank you for attending my TED Talk. So, well, listen, I'll wrap that up with a bow, because really what my big takeaway from all that was, now that I have spent like, you know, however long exercising my, you know, my anger and dealing with, you know, all the things that feel unfair and blah, 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 big fat ego death over here all summer long. You guys have all summer, year long, this whole time we've been doing this podcast, you guys know. My big takeaway is that like, now I have to let myself soften. Right? I have to let my little false ass masculine energy down. Mm-hmm. And I have to find a way, and this is more of a confession to everybody here who's listening, but I have to find a way to soften my heart towards those people who I feel like don't deserve grace, don't deserve healing, don't deserve freedom, because they have everything. They've taken everything from everyone. So fuck them. And I've been gently shown that that is not the way. So I'm happy that we talked about this. This is not how I thought this episode was going to go, but it's important because that's real and that's what we do here, but also for accountability. You know what I mean? Like if I'm going to like be out here calling people out, I also have to be willing to say the thing that doesn't make me look great, which is that I'm fucking resentful and I'm a petty, jealous ass bitch sometimes. And you know, then I wonder why I feel stuck and why I keep seeing this thing show back up in my life. And it's because I have this like resentment that I have not wanted to let go of. And you know what's interesting is I did, I think I've told you this, Rachel, so I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, but I did this meditation a couple months ago. It was just some cool one I found on Spotify, and it was about forgiveness. And I haven't done it since. I probably should because I've talked about it a couple times. But I was doing the meditation, and she kind of painted. I don't even remember the name of the girl, but she painted this picture of like you're sitting, you know, this whole vibe. You're sitting. You have a mug, a warm mug of like tea, and it's like kind of sweet and kind of spicy, and she called it the forgiveness elixir. Okay. And throughout the guided meditation, she kept suggesting, you know, take another sip and let each like sip kind of like, you know, go down your throat, feel it warm your belly, let it sit kind of, you know, and with each sip, it's a sip of forgiveness. Right. And this and that and this and that. And I just remember I'm going through and I'm imagining it all in my mind's eye, and I'm just going along. And then at some point she asks, what would it take for you to be willing to drink the entire cup? And I became enraged. I think I might have even shut it off. And you know what's interesting is because what came up for me was then I will have nothing. If I forgive, then that's all I've got.
No leverage.
I'll just let that be quiet and uncomfortable for a second, because that's real. And I remember and that is how I have felt still since. Even though I know in my head and my heart that like forgiveness is right, I can like tell myself the reasons why, you know, hurting people hurt people. I myself have, you know, been hurt and hurt people. Like, you know, like I can have compassion, empathy for that, my good old empath ways, right? But there was something very tangible about like, if I release this, that's it. There's no upper hand. I have nothing left. Right? And bitch, if that isn't what I have been given right back to me in my life, like, oh, is that all you have? Then that's all you have. Then sit with that.
That's all you get.
Yeah. If that's what you declare your life is, then that's what you get.
It's kind of interesting. I kind of feel like I went through anger first, and now you're coming along too, which is honestly like, I'm stoked for you.
I'm glad you still want to be my friend. Anybody who read my last blog post was like, whoa, my sister, which weren't many, to be honest, because people are like, oh, fuck, Mandy's bummed again. I don't want to read this shit. My sister read it though, and she was like, hey, dude, let me read this. It's actually so funny. She goes, hey, are you okay? This is the existential and literal winter that will not end. Are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. It's great.
Here's what I've learned about anger. Here are my tips for you. Like, there are benefits, and I remember being in anger feeling like very supported and protected, like I have my own back. Like even when you can't see me, but I just like pointed, like jab us, like I have my own back.
Yeah,
like there's something really
yes
about that, because it connects you to your actual real feelings and needs and authentic inner experience. Like I've never honestly felt more connected to my needs when I was stuck in anger.
Dude.
And it allows you to not go back into that we call that good girl programming. You don't go back into that. It helps you. What's funny is I was like,
it's the death. It's the death to the empath, is what it is. Because being an empath in that traditional sense is denying your anger, because that we want to make sure everyone else is comfortable, right? I don't want to be disrespectful to anybody. I don't want to make anybody feel put out or uncomfortable. So I'll just swallow this forever till I die so that you can, be comfortable. And that is over.
Yeah, it's protecting you or making you feel more resilient for how you've been silenced. And I got really, well, you know what I got angry about, but I got really angry this week. And I was explaining it to Poopsie, and I finished, and I had a moment where I was like, I never speak more clearly, precisely, say exactly what I want, how I want when I am in anger.
I am like rattling my head back and forth. Yes. This is yes.
I never, because I'm that connected to my actual wants and needs, and I'm saying them exactly how I'm feeling them. Whereas when I'm not, I'm a little bit like softer or nicer. So there are some benefits to anger. Like, you can't stay in it forever. But man, I like using it correctly.
Yes.
Like, applying it in a positive way can be super powerful.
You just literally put to words exactly how I've been feeling the past couple weeks. I mean, even just then when you were explaining that, I can attribute to Mikey and I, the past couple years, we're in the best place we've ever been in our marriage. It's like having a weird little second honeymoon right now. Like, he's literally my best friend. People, and I know I like say that all the time, but like so much more than like before. And people are always weirded out by that because they're like, "Oh, don't you work together? Isn't that weird?" And I'm like, "No, dude. Like, he's the only reason I still work there. I don't need. I can't go back. Like, what would I do all day? I don't know. Not see Mikey? No, that's crazy." But what you just said is true, because a couple years ago, we, as everyone else in the world, when, quarantine first started and stuff, like, shit got real pretty quick. And we were going through some life transitions of our own. And we just started being radically honest with each other. I mean, some of our fights were like cray. Do you know what I mean? But it's to the point now, since we both, thankfully, I'm so thankful for him, but because he chose to lean into it and I did too. And that's not always the case. Now, if something's up, if there's like a little vibe and it's like we're off, immediately somebody will just come out and say the fucking blurt it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just be like, he'll laugh at this if he listens to this. But I don't know, he was just being weird. And I was being weird, and we were having a weird night, and we went to bed, and we're just like laying there, like in the dark. And I'm like, "Oh, cool. So you're just going to be a fucking dud, huh?" Whereas before, I would have been all pissy and fucking gameplay weird girl bullshit. And I would have waited till the next morning and then fucking waited for him to say something. All that dumb shit. Listen, I'm the queen of dumb shit. I'm the one that does all that dumb shit. But in the past couple of years, there's just like no room for that. So like me before, I would have never, like you just said, clearly, directly, like literally. And when it becomes a practice to just live that way, conflict really does create intimacy if it's handled the right way. So thank you for saying that, because that gives me a little more love for my angry self. And what I also have been learning, actually, and we'll end with this, because now I'm like, oh, it's the Mandi show. I really am starting to understand that, like, this whole thing that we talk about in this big, huge space, right? The healing journey, the spiritual journey, the ascension, the blah, 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 becoming your best self, blah, blah, blah. I don't know if anybody else resonates with this, but I feel like that in the past, I've thought, well, that means you have to cut out all the parts of you that are gross, right? The parts of you that are not your best self, right? like death to jealousy, anger, resentment, all those things, ego, all those things that we don't like about ourselves. It's like the healing journey is about like releasing that from you. And that's actually fucking wrong. That's not it. That is not it. It is about finding those things within the darkest corners and loving that version of yourself too. Like learning how to believe that version of you also deserves your love, forgiveness, respect. That version of you deserves to be honored. The worst version of yourself that you've never even shared with anyone, that version of you also deserves to be embraced, loved, and accepted for who they had to be when they were making. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Yep.
That's it, dude. That's tough. Thank you for tuning in to Spill Your Guts. Cool. We'll see you guys next week. I don't know. You got any closing thoughts, RDP? We covered a lot of stuff as we usually do.
Now I'm just kind of like hyper fixated on anger, just because I always think like what you just said, any of the things that we're feeling aren't there to ruin your life. Like it's a calling, and it's really there to help you see and feel and know your truth.
Yeah.
If we just, we're not one dimensional. We have a wide range. And I think a lot of people deny themselves feeling things or make themselves feel bad because anger is wrong. Or like for women, a lot of times, especially sadness is more comfortable, but it's actually anger we're feeling.
Absolutely.
So I always think about like what my therapist told me one time is that like happiness isn't the goal. The goal is to experience all the things.
Yes, that's so
and
good.
let them roll. So you can really uncover like, and live in your truth.
Amen, sister. I also think that nothing is wasted, right? That's what we always say. Nothing's wasted. So I know that like, and I'll wrap this up with like, the fitness circle back, right? I did not feel like when I was 430 pounds that it was like my greatest life's gift when I was in that version of me. But looking back on it now, I do really see that as a gift for lots of different reasons. True, like humility has brought me the gift of being able to connect with people in a way that not a lot of other people can, right? It's given me, what I'm trying to say is like these hard things that we think are so bad that we want to just like, we want them to disappear or go away or be released into the fire at your moon ceremony somewhere, like those things actually are the things that we have to experience to love other human beings. Like I could not be anybody who gives a fuck about anybody if I haven't had to experience some of the things I've had to experience. Like right now, being somebody who is a blue collar worker at the bottom of the barrel in a factory with the Falcon. Do you know what I'm saying? Like there is a holiness happening there because I'm getting to experience something that not a lot of other people get to see firsthand. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like it's my own little bonfire of human connectedness happening there, right? And the same with you guys. Like everybody has those things, those like dark things that only you've experienced, that only you can take and be able to share with somebody else later on down the road and help them. Like as cliche as that sounds, like being the light to someone else's journey later on because of what you had to go through back there. That's how it works. Like the wheel keeps turning. So no small feat, guys. This is the work. You don't have to pay for somebody's super fancy course to learn about it all unless you really want to. And you can. You should. But I'm just saying you don't have to. Okay, over now. See you next week.